There is nothing like a shmup to get me into the zone, with the frantic challenges they offer being great for finding one of those flow states, and really, truly get the old adrenaline pumping. What's probably not a surprise to you out there in viewer land though is I'm more drawn to those from the 8 and 16-bit eras, over those more modern bullet hell games which I've honestly struggled to click with when I've given them a serious attempt. So when the craving strikes, it's always nice to have a game which is mostly new to you, that you've mostly not explored, and in some ways quite a bit special than something that you know and have spent plenty of time with already. In this case for me, that is Advanced Buster Hawk Gley Lancer. Now I've got to take a moment for a bit of a chuckle because what is it with these long names for some of these games? So yeah, once again, I'm just going to be calling it Gley Lancer through the rest of this video for the sake of my sanity. Gley Lancer originally hit Japanese markets in 1992, developed by NCS and published by Messiah. And here I'm not checking that version out because that goes for some serious money, but rather the 2023 reissue through Retrobit, which not only makes it available for those who want to play on a real Mega Drive without having to faff about with flashcards, but it also does it with a full English localization too. The importance of that comes into play right off the bat, as unlike most shooters which usually offer a fairly simple sequence before the title screen, Gley Lancer offers a lengthy, animated intro to help set things up. It sets the stage wonderfully for this 11-stage battle, as you take charge of Lucia Cabron, as she indulges in a little Grand Theft Starfighter to go rescuing her father from a horrible fate at the hands of the hostile forces engaging the Earth Federation in a dramatic skirmish. I feel it does a wonderful thing in setting the scene up with that anime-esque tone, especially compared to some of the other games NCS put out. The real USP of Gley Lancer though really shows up once you start playing. Any good shmup needs something to stand out from the crowd, especially on a platform like the Mega Drive, which just so happens to be jam-packed with them. And here, it's all about your weapon systems. This starts from your fighter's main gun, which just offers a simple fixed forward shot. The real fun though comes when you find some pickups. These activate your gunner modules, which at first might remind you of Reissue's option system, but honestly, they're far, far more versatile. When starting a new game, you'll first need to pick their mover program, and this guides their behaviour, whether they'll orbit your ship, shadow your movements, or automatically seek targets out. Your choice here sets the tone for how you approach combat within the game. It's even more important as you crank the difficulty up, as I found positioning them well is paramount to success and your survival in some situations. They've also got a secondary feature, which you engage through the C button. In most cases, this locks your gunners into place, while for others it changes their behaviour. The latter being most important for the surge gunners, which alternates between tracking the same or different targets, so you get better coverage depending on what you choose. Now, for the weapons. Collecting them doesn't just activate your gunners, but it changes their firepower as well. The range of weapons on offer ranges from more conventional choices like lasers or the twin shot, to others like the bounding shots or 5-way weapons. The most powerful weapon though comes in the form of the saber, though unsurprisingly, this is at the cost of its attack range. It's a fairly short beam that you have to be very careful with positioning with should you have it equipped. Now, I don't think any of these weapons are massively innovative. They're all solid and they all work pretty well. And you're certainly going to find your favourites. But one thing I found in my time with the game is that there's moments where each one really has its optimal time to shine. Most importantly, is that it's very easy to identify them when you blast a container to pick them up, so you know what to get or avoid depending on the situation. The recognition between each of their icons is absolutely a standout feature here. And besides, if you're unsure what you've got equipped anyway, it is displayed on the HUD, so you can just take a quick glance and see what's written there. All of these weapons aren't worth diddly squat without environments to use them in. Lucia's mission will take her from deep space and through a number of worlds. While the space stages are open, being threats mostly come from the enemies you'll engage, it's a different story for the planet-based ones. With these, you'll be blasting plenty of enemies for sure, but the focus is more on environmental hazards, combined with alternate scrolling directions. Whether it's the tunnels and walls of Stage 4, which you'll need to avoid at speed while blasting turrets, to the crystal caverns of Stage 7 and their destructible blocks, your choice of gunners and weapons is truly highlighted here. Of course now, it wouldn't be right for me to not highlight the stereotypical encounter with an enemy battleship in Stage 5. Yeah, dismantling it might not be as thorough an effort as R-Type's iconic encounter, but I loved it all the same. What really I love though is the climax. The 10th stage has Lucia chasing down an enemy ship which has her father's craft in its sight. The tension is certainly ramped up by this threat, and the absolute joy of seeing it go up in flames is more than its own reward. Just as an aside though, the way in which the surviving turrets just fall off the screen like they're a player dying in a platformer, priceless. So priceless. Another reward for your progress comes in the form of cutscenes which pop up between several missions. Thankfully, they are shorter than that intro cutscene, which is quite a lengthy one, and their purpose here is really to keep you updated on the wider story. But now, with the fate of Lucia's father resolved, all that's left is the final attack on the enemy fleet. It's funny how this kind of feels like the aftermath of the main story. It's not as important as you think it might be, but it still kind of is when you think about it. It doesn't mean this is an easy encounter though, so don't get too cocky. You'll also get one final cutscene once said enemy fleet is finally defeated, though this one is pretty simple and not really that long to round things out. Which of course begs the question, where does Gley fit into the wider picture? I mean, I think it's amazing that this game, only released in Japan, has been brought to the West and localized, 30 years later, and yeah, unofficial patches have existed for the longest periods of time, and I'm sure people have played the game with those patches without any issue. But I think that it's really special to see this happen, like in a sort of semi-official capacity. It's more than just, fans doing it, just having it at an official level feels kind of special. And of course, these aren't your only options. If you're okay with playing it on modern systems, well, it did get a port in 2021. Again, this was localized, and it also includes an interesting modern mode, and this really redefines how the gunners are used. There are two distinct changes. Firstly, you could freely switch what movement behaviour your gunners use at any point in the game. You're not just limited to that initial selection, though that sort of becomes your default mode. Plus, you can use the second stick on your controller to aim them. Though this is only in 8 directions rather than the 16 the original game was designed for, it's still a neat trick to sometimes give you a little better tactical control when you might need it. Though you might think it may nullify the challenge of the original game, I didn't really find that to be the case. It's still as fair a challenge as ever, compared to playing it on original hardware without any of those new features. Both the choice of weapon for your gunner and which mover mode you want to use for them is still as important as ever here as it was in the original game as well. Now there's plenty of options on offer, both in the original version and the modern one. A choice of difficulty levels, adjustable speeds with a customizable default, and that's really handy because it gets fiddly, setting it to your preferred one should you die, and even constant auto fire, which is a nice feature to not have to, repeatedly hammer that button on your gamepad. Plus, as heretical as it might sound considering the focus of the cutscenes in the story, you can turn the cutscenes off if you just want a quick blast fest. Sounds like a good move should you need it. Now, on a technical level, Gley certainly pushes the hardware, but not to the extent that other games do. It doesn't really get to the point where there's lots of slowdown here. The visuals remain clear the whole time, and though there's points where sprites do get hidden, it's not the stuff which is actively what you want to keep an eye on, so it's not too much of an impact. I'll say the same for the controls. They're tight, responsive and fluid. It's everything you need for a shooter. It doesn't get in your way. And if you mess up, you get yourself killed. It's not on the game, it's all on you, and that's just how it should be. Then of course, there's the audio. The soundtrack offers a mix of pumping music for the more frantic battles, and more chilled pieces for those slower planetary stages. Now, I'm going to admit, it's not the best of the best soundtracks out there for games on the Mega Drive, but it's still quite enjoyable to listen to as you're blasting your way through. There are some speech clips which are employed, usually announcing which weapon you've collected for your gunners, or situational ones, like reaching the end of level boss, or an environmental hazard you have to deal with.
A huge enemy stands in your way.
Unlike the soundtrack though, this is a bit more variable in quality. Typically it's kind of scratchy, which is not a surprise for speech clips on the Mega Drive, but sometimes it can be hard to decipher against the intense action. I'll admit, I think it would have been nice had there been a visual cue to go with them, but that's not the end of the world. Thankfully, there is the sound test option in the game options, and you can hear all the clips there, play the music to your heart's content as well, so hey, it helps get familiar with them should you need it.
Stick to it and believe in your power. A huge enemy stands.
Overall, Scanlines is a frantic shooter that offers a fair and scalable challenge for those into their shmups. Something I really appreciated is that, while it's not a cakewalk, at least before you've put some practice in, the challenge isn't overpowering like it is with several other iconic games on the machine. Though of course, if you do want something tougher, the game will give you options to calibrate it and adjust its difficulty for you. And those even include a hidden extra mania mode should you really want the game to take you to town. I don't think it really aims to innovate like other shooters have, rather more deliver a story around the action, and I think it pretty much succeeds in that. It's a very stylishly well presented game, the cutscenes are great for bringing the story, and you do feel something as you make progress. And again, I guess for me the thing with this that makes it special is that seeing a game like this get officially localized, made available in this way, even though it was a one and done thing for the physical cartridge, I think it helps keeps games like this in circulation, both in being able to play them, but also discuss them in more interesting ways than just about, oh, I played this when I was younger or whatever. Now, you can come to it with an adult mind, appreciate the game for what it is, for what it's doing, and whether it works or not. And that's really all from me on this one. If you enjoyed the episode, do consider the usual things, the likes, the comments, sharing and all that. Trust me, it really helps. I do hope you go give Scanlines a shot, at least if you're a shooters fan. It's certainly one I think is great fun and a fair challenge without being overwhelming. Most importantly, I just want to say thank you all very much for watching.